Alright, so negentropy. This should be a long one. Let's start with its opposite, entropy. A concept most people are familiar with, but just in case you're not, everything in the universe uses energy to do anything, and energy moves towards the path of least resistance, meaning that eventually all the energy in the universe is gonna be distributed equally, and nothing can ever happen again. That's called the heat death of the universe. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention to anything, but we are talking monkeys typing on supercomputers in a flying rock covered in biology that stands a few space meters to the side of a flaming ball of nuclear reactions. And none of that sounds even remotely close to the path of least resistance that energy could have taken to a good old boring heat death of the universe. So that's where negentropy comes into play. To put it simply, negentropy is the opposite of entropy, and it's the remarkably intuitive notion that, yes, things in our universe actually become more and more complex as time goes on, which, okay, fair, pockets of complexity are allowed even under entropy's reign of terror, but what we witness in actual reality is far greater than a pocket of complexity. It's an exponential increase in complexity, always leading to more complexity than you can predict by looking at the past trend of increasing complexity. Which sounds really fucking confusing, but what else am I supposed to say? That the increase is not even exponential, but in fact it is the last one of the arithmetic operations residing at the end of the hyperoperation sequence, making it so that I can't even easily assign a name to it? Okay, fuck. Sorry, let me slow down. Things got a little heated there. So, yeah, negentropy is the actual underlying direction of reality, which means that no, the boring, predictable ending of the heat death of the universe is not the one we're headed towards. But I guess an intuitive way to think about it will be with the concept of emergence. As less complex things come together to create more complex ones, the new creations are always greater than the sum of their parts, leading into this vicious cycle that eventually gives you fucking internet memes out of nothing more than atoms. And we're just getting started. Now, let me just repeat real quick that yes, entropy moves reality towards its configuration with the least amount of novelty possible, where everything is distributed equally, and yes, negentropy moves reality in the opposite direction. But when I say everything, I'm not just talking about energy in the physical space, but also in a more abstract sense, I'm talking about ideas in the metaphysical space. The direction or path that reality is taking will, after an infinite amount of time, reach a final destination. And since humans are pretty cool at naming stuff, here's some of the names we gave to this final destination. Post-singularity, the transcendental object at the end of time, great attractor, or my favorite, the Nash equilibrium of reality. A cool way to visualize it is to think of your reality as a point with random coordinates in an infinite 2D canvas, and the direction of reality as the vector that moves this point, which is constantly changing. So, if you spawn the point at the origin, you can imagine the reductionist narrative of entropy like a big push that is applied to the point on the starting frame, which is the Big Bang, and the rest of history as just the point returning to the 0, coordinates more and more slowly as it approaches the final destination. That's called asymptotically or something like that, I'm pretty sure, yeah. Under the rules of negentropy though, you don't need the excuse of a Big Bang, you'll just have a point that keeps accelerating more and more towards the most interesting path, as if there was a transcendental object at the end of its journey telling it what to do. That's why it's called the Great Attractor. Now, let's take a breather and link some stuff before we get into the heavy part of the video. If you're confused about mapping reality to coordinates, check out this video I made. If you're more interested in the topic of steering reality, check out this great talk by Terence Mckenna. If you're one of the cooler kids and already want to jump into where the fuck we've been forced to go for the past couple millennia so we'd be prepared for where we're going next, there's a very long but exhaustive documentary from the Hungry Hippie on the topic. You can find all the links in the description. Now, back to it. So, okay, we already established reality is going somewhere. We can call this wall path from the spawn point to the ending coordinates reality's journey. But this journey can actually be defined as the active choosing of what those ending coordinates are going to be. Like a family going for a trip, but deciding where they're going as they're going there. So like, let's turn left here, let's turn right there, or let's go straight here. And at the end of everything, which only lasts your lifetime by the way, those coordinates are reached, and you will have to go for another trip in the life machine to change the coordinates again, for everything that resides out of time is unchanging after all. So, what do those coordinates entail? What changes when you change them? Well, if you had everything, every single concept and idea and kind of reality, how would you organize it? It turns out there's infinite answers, and that infinite is a much bigger infinity than any human can start to comprehend. Humans are in fact the coin flip used to decide how everything's going to be set up for the next eternity. But eternity's end, and we still haven't found the perfect setup. Or, better yet, we found it, we just didn't bring it up all the way in the chain of emergence to manifest it in reality, and fine-tune the transcendental object at the end of time to our liking. And who can blame us? Metaphysical politics are just as frustrating as the real ones, but not any less bullshit. The distractions will always be there, we can just organize them differently. Okay, fuck, I'm going full meta. Determinism, causal loops, retrocausality, go fucking read The Last Question by Isaac Asimov.